You need to leave. Her voice didn't shake. Not even a little. Right now, before I call the cops. He stood there, soaking wet from the rain, holding the crumpled $20 bill she'd lent him 3 weeks ago. Behind her, through the doorway of her tiny apartment, he could see the life he'd built with her. The thrift store coffee mugs, the second-hand couch, the drawings her daughter had taped to the fridge. All of it about to disappear. "Please," he whispered. "Just let me explain." "Explain what?" She laughed. But it was the kind of laugh that comes right before crying. That you're Nathaniel Cross? That you own half of Austin? That every single thing you told me was a lie? His phone, the cheap prepaid one, buzzed in his pocket. But it wasn't cheap anymore. Someone had figured it out. Someone had told her. And now the woman he loved was looking at him like he was a stranger. "You don't understand," he said. "No," she whispered, tears finally breaking through. "I don't, and I never will." Before this goes any further, if you've ever believed in taking a chance on someone, in choosing hard over comfort, please stay with us. Subscribing, liking, or sharing this story isn't about supporting a channel. It's about standing behind stories that remind us who we are. If that matters to you, even a little, stay. 31 days earlier, Nathaniel Cross sat in the private dining room of Uchi in Austin, nursing a $300 glass of whiskey he didn't want, surrounded by people he didn't like. "You're out of touch, Nate." His business partner, Trevor, grinned from across the table. "You have no idea what real life is like anymore." "I know plenty about real life," Nathaniel said coolly. "Really?" Trevor leaned back. "When's the last time you worried about rent? About gas prices? About whether you could afford groceries?" Nathaniel said nothing. "That's what I thought." Trevor swirled his drink. "You're a billionaire, man. You live in a different universe than 99% of the world. And that's why your new housing development is going to fail." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "It's not going to fail." "It will, because you're building affordable housing without understanding the people who need it. You think slapping a lower price tag on luxury apartments makes them accessible? You're delusional." The table went quiet. Nathaniel set down his glass. "What are you suggesting?" Trevor smiled. "I'm suggesting you prove me wrong. Go live like a normal person for 30 days. No credit cards. No penthouse. No driver. Just you, a crappy apartment, and a minimum wage job. If you can survive, I'll admit I'm wrong. If you can't," he shrugged, "you kill the project. And if I do it, then I'll personally invest $50 million into your affordable housing initiative." Nathaniel stared at him. At 36, he'd built Cross Development from nothing into a $4 billion empire. He'd survived hostile takeovers, brutal negotiations, and a childhood that would have broken most people. He could survive 30 days. "Deal," Nathaniel said. Trevor laughed. "This is going to be fun to watch." The next morning, Nathaniel moved into a one-bedroom apartment in East Austin, $850 a month. Peeling paint, a window AC unit that sounded like a dying lawnmower. He'd left behind his Rolex, his tailored suits, his Tesla. He had $2,000 in cash, a prepaid phone, and clothes from Target. And he needed a job. By day 3, he was working at an H-E-B on Riverside Drive, stocking shelves for $14 an hour. It was humbling in ways he hadn't expected. His manager, a woman named Cynthia who couldn't have been older than 25, spoke to him like he was invisible. Customers bumped into him without apologizing. His back ached. His hands blistered. And he loved it. Not the pain, but the clarity. For the first time in years, no one knew his name. No one wanted anything from him. He was just nobody. On day 7, he met her. Her name was Isla Ramsey, and she was loading groceries into the trunk of a beat-up Honda Civic in the H-E-B parking lot when one of her bags split open. Cans of soup rolled across the asphalt. Nathaniel jogged over without thinking. "Let me help." She looked up, startled. Dark brown eyes, black hair pulled into a ponytail, exhaustion written across her face. "It's fine," she said quickly. "I got it." But she didn't, because her hands were shaking. "Please," Nathaniel said gently. "I work here. It's literally my job." She hesitated, then nodded. They gathered the cans in silence. When they finished, she looked at him, really looked at him, and said, "Thank you. I'm sorry. It's been a long day." "I get it. Do you?" She smiled, but it was sad. "Because you look like you've never had a long day in your life." He almost laughed. "You'd be surprised." She studied him for a moment, then shook her head. "I'm Isla." "Nate," he said. "Well, Nate, thanks for saving my soup." She drove away, and Nathaniel couldn't stop thinking about her. That night, lying on his lumpy second-hand mattress, Nathaniel stared at the ceiling and thought about what Trevor had said. "You're out of touch." Maybe he was. Maybe he'd spent so long building empires that he'd forgotten what it felt like to just live. Have you ever felt like you were so focused on winning that you forgot why you started? Drop a comment, because this is where everything changes. He saw Isla again 2 days later. She was at H-E-B, standing in the cereal aisle, her daughter, maybe 6 years old, with braids and light-up sneakers, tugging on her sleeve. "Mommy, can we get the one with the marshmallows?" "Not this week, baby," Isla said softly. "We have the other kind at home." "But I don't like that one." "Ava." Isla's voice was firm but kind. "Not this week." The little girl's face fell. Nathaniel watched from the end of the aisle, something twisting in his chest. Before he could think better of it, he walked over. "Hey," he said. "Isla, right?" She turned surprised. "Nate. Hi. Hi." He looked down at Ava, who was staring at him with wide, curious eyes. "And who's this?" "This is my daughter, Ava." "Nice to meet you, Ava," Nathaniel said seriously. He crouched down to her level. "I hear you like marshmallow cereal." Ava nodded shyly. Nathaniel glanced at Isla, then back at Ava. "Can I tell you a secret? That cereal's on sale this week. Manager's special. 2 for 1. Isla's eyes widened. "Nate." "It's true," he lied smoothly. "I checked this morning. You'd actually be losing money if you didn't get it." Ava's face lit up. "Mommy." Isla looked at him for a long moment, something unreadable in her expression. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't mention it." They started running into each other more often. At the H-E-B, at the laundromat down the street, at the food truck park on East 6 where Isla took Ava on Friday nights because it was cheaper than a real restaurant. And they started talking. "What do you do?" Nathaniel asked one night as they sat on a bench, watching Ava play in a nearby fountain. "I'm a phlebotomist," Isla said. "I draw blood at a clinic in South Austin. That's a tough job." She shrugged. "It pays the bills." "Barely. But Ava's dad isn't in the picture, so it's just us." She looked at him. "What about you? How'd you end up stocking shelves?" Nathaniel hesitated. "I'm between things, figuring some stuff out." "That's cryptic." He smiled. "What about you? You always lived in Austin." "Most of my life. I grew up in Miami. Actually, my mom still lives there, works at a Publix on Biscayne Boulevard. I moved here for college, met Ava's dad, and, well, here we are." "Do you regret it?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "But not Ava. Never her." Nathaniel looked at the little girl, laughing as she splashed in the water, and something in his chest cracked open. "She's lucky to have you," he said. Isla smiled. "You're sweet, Nate. Whoever you're figuring yourself out for, they're lucky too." He wasn't figuring himself out for anyone until now. By day 20, Nathaniel was in trouble, not because the experiment was hard, but because he was falling in love. With Isla, with Ava, with the life they'd built from scraps and stubbornness. He'd started spending more time with them, helping Isla fix her car when it broke down, bringing Ava books from the thrift store, sitting on Isla's couch, the one she bought secondhand from Facebook Marketplace, watching Bluey and eating microwave popcorn. And one night, after Ava had fallen asleep, Isla turned to him. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why do you look at me like that?" "Like what?" "Like I'm something you've been searching for." Nathaniel's breath caught. "Because you are," he said quietly. She stared at him, her eyes wide, and then she kissed him. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was soft and tentative and terrifying. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "I don't even know you, Nate." "Yes, you do," he said. "You know me better than anyone." But that was a lie, and he knew it. That night, Nathaniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his cheap apartment, and he realized something. He'd spent his whole life building walls, protecting himself, proving he was worth something. But Isla didn't care about any of that. She cared about who he was when no one was watching. Have you ever been terrified that the real you wouldn't be enough? Leave a comment, because the truth is coming, and it's going to cost him everything. It all fell apart on day 28. Nathaniel was at Isla's apartment. Ava was asleep. They were curled up on the couch, her head on his shoulder, watching some reality show neither of them cared about. His prepaid phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. "You should get that," Isla murmured. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing, because the third time it buzzed, a text preview flashed on the screen. "Nate, it's Trevor. Your 30 days are almost up. The board's asking questions. Call me." Isla sat up slowly. "Nate!" His blood turned to ice. "Who's Trevor?" she asked. "A friend." "What board?" "Isla." She grabbed the phone, and before he could stop her, she Googled his name. Nathaniel Cross. CO, billionaire, cross development. Her face went white. "No," she whispered. "Isla, let me explain." "Get out. Please. Get out." Ava woke up crying, and Nathaniel stood there, frozen, as the only real thing he'd ever had shattered into pieces. He left. He went back to his penthouse, the one overlooking Lady Bird Lake, the one with marble floors and a view that cost $8 million. And he hated it. Trevor called the next morning. "So," Trevor said, "did you survive?" "I survived." "Good. Then I owe you $50 million. Congratulations, Nate. You won." Nathaniel hung up because he hadn't won anything. For 3 days, Nathaniel tried to call Isla. She didn't answer. He showed up at her apartment. She wouldn't open the door. He left a note. "I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please let me explain." She texted back, "There's nothing to explain. You lied. You pretended to be someone you're not, and I fell for it. That's on me." He texted, "I didn't pretend. The person I was with you, that's who I really am." She didn't reply. So he did the only thing he could think of. He went to her clinic. Isla was in the middle of drawing blood from a patient when the receptionist told her someone was here to see her. "Tell them I'm busy," Isla said. He said, "It's urgent." "I don't care." "Isla." She looked up. Nathaniel stood in the doorway. "You need to leave," she said. "I will. But first, I need you to hear me." "I don't want to hear." "I was pretending to be broke," he said, loud enough that everyone in the waiting room turned to stare. "For 30 days. It was a stupid bet with my business partner. He said I was out of touch with real people. So I moved into a crappy apartment and got a job at H-E-B to prove him wrong." He stepped closer. "But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about the bet. Because I met you, and Ava, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't Nathaniel Cross, billionaire CEO. I was just Nate, the guy who helped you carry your groceries, the guy who watched Bluey with your daughter, the guy who fell in love with you." Isla's hands were shaking. "I lied about who I was," Nathaniel continued. But I didn't lie about how I felt. And I know you don't owe me anything. But I need you to know meeting you changed everything. You changed everything. She stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Why should I believe you? Because I'm standing here, he said quietly, in front of a room full of strangers, begging you to give me another chance. I've spent my whole life building walls, and you tore them all down. You and Ava, you're the only real thing I've ever had. Silence. Then Isla said, You broke my heart. I know. Ava asked about you. Every day. I'm so sorry. She drew you a picture. Did you know that? Nathaniel's voice cracked. No. Isla wiped her eyes. It's the three of us. At the food trucks. She wanted to give it to you. Isla. But I can't let her, Isla whispered. Because what happens when you get bored? When this experiment is over and you go back to your real life? What happens to her? To us? That's not going to happen. How do you know? Because I already quit. She blinked. What? I stepped down as CEO this morning, Nathaniel said. I'm keeping my shares, but I'm not running the company anymore. I'm starting something new, something that matters. Affordable housing. Real affordable housing. For people like you. People who deserve better. He stepped closer. And I want to do it here. In Austin. Because this is where you are. And you're all that matters to me. Isla stared at him, stunned. You're insane, she whispered. Probably. You gave up everything. No, Nathaniel said. I gave up nothing. Because without you and Ava, I had nothing. Isla once told Nathaniel, money doesn't make you rich. Love does. And maybe that's the truth we all forget. That the most valuable things in life can't be bought, can't be built, can't be earned. They can only be given and received. If you've ever had to choose between what you have and who you love, drop a comment. Because this is the moment that defines everything. Isla didn't answer right away. She just looked at him. This man who'd lied to her, broken her heart, and somehow still stood in front of her like she was the only thing that mattered. If I let you back in, she said quietly, you don't get to leave again. Not when it gets hard. Not when you remember who you used to be. I won't. Promise me. I promise. She took a breath, and then she nodded. Okay. Okay. Okay, she repeated, a small smile breaking through. But you're explaining everything to Ava, and you're buying her that marshmallow cereal. Nathaniel laughed, actually laughed. Deal. 6 months later, Nathaniel and Isla stood in front of the first building of Cross Commons, a 200-unit affordable housing development in East Austin. Real affordable housing, with a community center, a daycare, and rent controlled at 30% of median income. Ava ran around the playground, her light-up sneakers flashing. You did it, Isla said, leaning into him. We did it, Nathaniel corrected. She smiled. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just some guy who didn't know what he was doing. I didn't. But now I do, Nathaniel said. He turned to face her. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm building a life. With you. With Ava. That's all I want. Isla kissed him. And Nathaniel realized something. For 30 days, he pretended to be broke. But what he discovered was that he'd been broken all along. Until her. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what really matters. And sometimes the richest life is the one you build with the people who see you, not for what you have, but for who you are. If this story touched you in any way, if it made you feel something, pause for a moment, or see life a little differently, please don't let it end here. These stories take heart, time, and care to create, and your support is what keeps them alive. Subscribing, liking, or sharing isn't just a click. It's a quiet way of saying this mattered. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, Please stay with us.